Of all the biological processes intrinsic to human life, none has been shrouded in as much mystery, taboo, and potent folklore as the act of ejaculation and, more specifically, its conscious avoidance, semen retention. To the modern, secular mind, the practice often evokes images of ascetic monks in remote caves or the pseudo-scientific ramblings of online subcultures. It is dismissed as a primitive superstition, a psychological placebo, or worse, a symptom of repressed sexuality. Yet, to relegate it to these corners is to ignore a profound and recurring thread woven through the tapestry of human wisdom, from ancient Taoist scriptures and Vedic philosophies to the writings of classical thinkers and the anecdotal testimonies of thousands of modern men. What if this practice points not to a mere lifestyle hack, but to a fundamental, albeit unspoken, universal law of energy? A law that, once understood, reconfigures one's relationship with vitality, purpose, and consciousness itself. This is the proposition. Semen retention is the practical application of the universal law of energy conservation and transmutation. It is the principle that the most potent physical essence a male body produces is not meant for indiscriminate expenditure, but can be conserved and alchemically transformed into a higher currency: creative power, mental clarity, and spiritual vitality. It is the law nobody told you about, because our contemporary narrative is built upon a foundation of consumption and release, not conservation and refinement. To understand the law, one must first appreciate the sheer biological investment represented by semen. Modern science reductively views it as a vehicle for genetic material, a simple cocktail of proteins, fructose, and sperm cells. This is like describing a supercomputer as a collection of sand and metals. The ancient sages saw it differently. In Taoism, it is Jing, one of the three treasures alongside Qi, energy, and Shun, spirit. Jing is considered the foundational, primordial essence, the bedrock of our vitality, inherited from our parents and stored in the kidneys. It is the fuel of life, the battery power with which we are born, and it is finite. Every act of ejaculation, from this perspective, is not just the loss of a few milliliters of fluid, but a significant expenditure of this precious Jing. While it can be replenished through nutrition, sleep, and breath, the rate of expenditure often far outpaces the rate of replenishment in the modern world of chronic stress, poor diet, and sensory overstimulation. The body's priority is survival and procreation. When semen is frequently expended, a massive portion of the body's vital energy, its qi, is perpetually diverted to replenish this lost Jing. This energy is drawn from the same reservoir used for every other function: brain power, cellular repair, immune function, and emotional resilience. Herein lies the core of the universal law. Energy follows attention, and vital force cannot be spent in two places at once. When the body is constantly in a state of replenishing lost primordial essence, there is simply less energy available for higher pursuits. The practitioner of semen retention interrupts this cycle of depletion. By conserving the semen, he ceases the constant drain on his Jing. The energy that would have been allocated to producing another batch of semen is now a surplus. This is not merely a neutral state of not losing. It is an active state of accrual. This accumulated life force, no longer needing to be spent on biological reproduction, begins to seek other outlets. It must go somewhere. And according to the law, it transmutes. The hidden law: where energy goes, life grows. Every form of creation in the universe follows one principle. Life emerges where energy accumulates. A star forms when hydrogen compresses. A tree grows when sunlight gathers in its leaves. Muscles develop when tension builds and is not released prematurely. Ideas flourish when focus is saved instead of scattered. The same law applies to masculine energy. A man's seed is not random biology. It contains the blueprint for life, the densest concentration of creative potential the body produces. To create a child requires a man's full bodily resources: nutrients, hormones, minerals, and vitality. To waste this energy casually is to violate the law of directed life force. Modern culture conditions men to release constantly, often, and without thought. But nature tells a different truth. What you retain, you can redirect. What you waste, you lose forever. When a man holds a seed, his body doesn't simply store it. It recycles, refines, and elevates it. The energy becomes sharper thinking, stronger ambition, increased drive, deeper presence, and a more powerful masculine aura. This is not superstition. It is biology aligned with metaphysics. What ancient cultures knew but the modern world forgot. Travel back through history, and you will find one striking pattern. Every civilization that valued strong men taught semen retention. Taoist masters practiced jing preservation. Yogis taught brahmacharya, the upward channeling of sexual energy. Samurai practiced abstinence before battle. Christian monks held their seed to deepen spiritual clarity. African and Native American tribes tested young men through periods of sexual discipline. Why? Because they understood this law. Sexual energy is creative energy. Creative energy is life force. Life force is power. Modern society reversed this wisdom. Instead of helping men cultivate inner power, it encourages them to drain themselves. Not for their own good, but because a depleted man is easier to control, distract, and manipulate. A man filled with energy is dangerous in the best way. He is focused. He is purposeful. He is disciplined. He is harder to mislead. He becomes someone who shapes the world instead of being shaped by it. How semen retention changes a man's brain. Men practicing retention often describe clarity, confidence, and drive that feel almost supernatural. These effects are not magic. They are neurochemical. Dopamine recalibration. Constant release overstimulates dopamine pathways. Over time, this leads to decreased motivation, lower baseline happiness, addiction-like behavior, lack of ambition. Retention resets the sensitivity of dopamine receptors, giving a man his natural drive back. Enhanced focus and presence. As sexual energy builds, testosterone increases, and the prefrontal cortex becomes more active. This enhances decision-making, emotional regulation, mental clarity, long-term thinking. You stop living as a slave to impulses and start living with intention. Heightened ambition and assertiveness. With higher testosterone and stabilized dopamine, the male brain instinctively begins to pursue goals, progress, and legacy. This is why men on retention report increased productivity, better discipline. Semen retention produces changes men cannot ignore. Higher testosterone levels. While not always permanently elevated, testosterone spikes during periods of abstinence and creates powerful physiological effects. More strength, deeper voice, increased muscle density, reduced fatigue, enhanced recovery, greater confidence, stronger personal boundaries. The brain is no longer drowning in stimulation. It is driven by vision. Semen retention produces changes men cannot ignore. Higher testosterone levels. While not always permanently elevated, testosterone spikes during periods of abstinence and creates powerful physiological effects. More strength, deeper voice, increased muscle density, reduced fatigue, enhanced recovery. Subscribe to this channel. Increase vitality and stamina. Because the body is not forced to replenish lost seed, it redirects nutrients to immune function, muscle repair, brain health, hormonal balance. Men feel more alive because they are no longer draining the body's most nutrient-rich fluid. Improved posture and body language. Confidence is not only psychological. When inner energy rises, it naturally expresses through grounded posture, stronger eye contact, calmer presence, slower, more deliberate movement. People notice before you say a single word. Spiritual evolution. The inner shift nobody talks about. Beyond biology, semen retention has a profound spiritual dimension. The rise of chi, prana, or life force. Every spiritual tradition teaches that sexual energy is the root of spiritual energy. When not dissipated, it rises through the body, awakening, intuition, insight, willpower, inner peace. This upward flow is the foundation of spiritual mastery. Deep in masculine essence, a man on retention becomes grounded, unwavering, decisive, centered. Women sense it. Men feel it. The air itself seems to respond to his presence. Alignment with purpose. Most men wander through life with no clear direction. Retention reconnects you with your inner compass. Instead of drifting, you begin moving with intention. This is why many men experience sudden clarity of mission, stronger discipline toward goals, detachment from distractions, deeper self-respect. It is not coincidence. It is energy channeling itself into purpose, as it was designed to do. Emotional mastery. You stop being a slave to impulse. Retention stabilizes a man's emotional world in ways he never expects. Calmness under pressure. With higher inner energy stores, you react less and respond more. Stress feels easier to navigate. You stop losing control over small things. Reduced anxiety and depression. Low dopamine and overstimulation create mental instability. Retention reverses this by stabilizing the reward system, reducing anxiety, and increasing baseline happiness. Increased patience and discipline. You develop the ability to delay gratification, one of the most powerful predictors of long-term success. Women respond to a man who has his energy intact. One of the most mysterious aspects of semen retention is how dramatically it affects a man's relationships. Women feel the aura. A man on retention radiates presence, groundedness, confidence, self-control. These traits are deeply attractive at a subconscious, biological level. You become less needy. Neediness comes from energy depletion. When your seed is intact, you don't chase validation. You radiate self-worth. Your standards rise. Retention naturally elevates who you allow into your life. You stop tolerating disrespect, games, or low-quality connections. You attract what you are becoming. Men on retention often report attracting women who mirror their new discipline, ambition, and spiritual depth. Not because of luck, because energy attracts like energy. The universal law in action. What you withhold transforms you. Every natural law has consequences. Semen retention aligns with the law of transmutation. When primal energy is withheld, it evolves into higher forms of power. This happens across biology, psychology, spirituality, relationships, finances, creativity. The same energy used to create life can also create businesses, ideas, art, discipline, character, legacy. Most men never discover this because they spill their energy before it matures. Retention is not about repression. It is about transformation. The war against male energy. Why no one tells men this? Why is this universal law hidden? Because a man who controls his sexual energy becomes dangerous, unstoppable, focused, independent, unwilling to be manipulated. A society built on distraction cannot survive men who are fully awake. Industries profit when men are addicted. Governments are stable when men are passive. Social platforms thrive when men chase dopamine instead of purpose. The man who practices retention rejects all of this. He becomes ungovernable, not in a rebellious sense, but in a self-mastered sense. A man who governs himself does not need external control. When a man's energy rises, his life rises with it. Practice retention long enough, and you will notice shifts in every area. Financial life, better decisions, sharper intuition, reduced laziness, increased ambition, physical health, more energy, better workouts, faster recovery, purpose and goals, clearer vision, greater discipline, unstoppable drive, relationships, healthier boundaries, stronger presence, deeper respect from others, spiritual life, intuition grows, peace deepens, awareness expands. This is the universal law at work. Semen retention ultimately reveals something profound. You are not preserving semen. You are preserving yourself. You are saving your potential, your strength, your focus, your creativity, your discipline, your essence. You become the version of yourself you always sensed but could never reach when you lived as a slave to impulse. Retention reminds you of something the world wants you to forget. You were not born to be depleted. You were born to be powerful. And when you honor this law, life begins to honor you back.